Welcome to this session of Straight Drive Panorama. I'm Sudhanshu Mani. Namaskar. Baluchistan to Arunachal, Ladakh to Kerala, that is the spread of our Indian subcontinent. Uh, it may well be many countries today, but we do share a common heritage and I would say even an identity. So the Indian has become South Asian or some say East Indians today. But there are many basic questions about our history, legacy, ethos, religion, customs, philosophy, and so on. So there are layers and layers which we must peel slowly and methodically to understand or at least try to understand it. Typically, the questions are how are we connected to ancient Indian civilization? What exactly is Indian culture? How and what to identify as unique or typical in, let's say, our Indian ancient music, literature, and what does it tell us about our culture? How did the advent of Islam affect Indian society? We must remember that ours is a land which, apart from the oldest Hindu temples and Buddhist stupas, has one of the oldest mosques and one of the oldest churches in the world. Recently, I was in dialogue on Straight Drive Panorama with Mr. Santosh Kumar, IFS retired, former ambassador of India to many countries, and a research analyst, thinker, and Hindi poet. The subject line last time was Am I a Hindu? We plan to continue this discussion about India and its people in a series. And taking up today, we want to find out our Indian identity. Welcome, sir.
नमस्कार।
फिराक गोरखपुरी ने कहा है कि जेर और बम से साज खिलकत के जहां बनता गया, ये जमी बनती गई, ये आसमां बनता गया, सरजमीन हिंद पर अक़वाम आलम के फिराक काफिले बसते गए, हिंदुस्तान बनता गया।
बसता गया। वाह।
अब ये this is translation would be that on this land of India, caravans of the world, nations of the world came in procession and settled here, and that's what gave birth to the Hindustan of today. Some outsiders, including imperial rulers, saw India as a collection of groups and Indians as a people without a past and without a future, a territory not populated by individuals who could deliberate, form opinions, exercise judgment, and make choices, but by fixed and permanent identities, not free agents, but members of a group, Hindu or Muslim, Brahmin or Dalit, and so on. People condemned to communities whose interests were predetermined, and politics was about managing tensions among groups to strike some kind of a balance among categories of people rather than people themselves. This discourse had to be broken after independence, but we're not sure where we have reached today. So let me put my question here. To begin with, there is this unending debate about who are the Indian people, specifically, who are the Aryan people of the Indian subcontinent. And a narrative is that ever since the migration from Africa reached India millennia ago, an ancient people and civilization flourished in India, encompassing the Indus Valley, followed by the Vedic civilizations. So, what do your studies suggest, sir? Were the Aryan people indigenous to India, or were they invaders or settlers from the West? And also about historical migration within the Indian subcontinent and the movement of people towards south and the east. So, not limited to this, my question alone, please share your thoughts on the subject, sir.
Thank you, Sudhanshu. I think that is a very good place to start with. What is our identity's historical background? And I guess your second question is how do the so-called Aryan civilization, how do we place that within that historical continuum? Now, I must preface what I'm saying by confessing that there are many disciplines involved in this, and I am no expert in any of them. I have just read a lot from different disciplines, and this is like a common sense approach based on objective things as I see them, which I'm going to put forth. Now, if you look at what is the identity of the Indian people or who are the Indian people, I think you have to go back millennia. You have to actually start with when human beings moved out of Africa. And the first, well, there are many theories, but the most accepted one these days is that about 120,000 years ago, the climate changed, and therefore it was possible for human beings to come out of Africa into what we now call West Asia and then spread from there across the globe. Now, uh, these were what you would call archaic human beings. They were not Homo sapiens. We are all now, the whole world is populated by Homo sapiens. But these were, let's say, archaic pre-Homo sapiens or human beings. When and these people, they spread all over the globe. I think following the coastal routes, they reached India around 120,000 years ago, maybe, and they spread across India as well. They were basically hunter-gatherers and people whom you might find some glimpses of in places like there is a set of caves in Madhya Pradesh called Bhimbetka, and uh, you have their various drawings and so on, which have been left behind by ancient peoples, which some of them could be from these archaic human beings, and some later on to the other period I'm coming to, which is around 65, 70,000 years ago, when the Homo sapien uh, subset of human beings came out of Africa. Again, through what is now Israel and so on, and West Asia, they spread all across, and following the same routes, they came to India. And again, obviously, they must have interacted and had a conflict also with the earlier archaic human beings which were there. But in any case, they prevailed, and again, they spread all over India. So that is what people, the experts have more or less accepted as of now, happened in the very, very ancient times. The next marker that we can see is about 7,000 years ago. And I may again go back to the background because a lot of these mass migrations were really dependent on the climate changes. And around 11 to 12,000 years ago, the last ice age that we knew of finished. And therefore, it was possible, number one, for people to move out, and number two, for them to develop agriculture. Because the ice had receded, you had fertile grounds, you had rivers, you had water, and so slowly agriculture developed. It's developed mainly in what was earlier called Mesopotamia, that is the valley of the Tigris and Euphrates, Israel, and from there into what is Iran now, that is Persia, and into the northwest of India. And the first signs of it that we see, the first vestiges, are about 7,000 years ago in a village which was excavated called Meher, which is now called Mehergarh, and this is in the Kutchi plains of Balochistan. And there you see houses which are built of bricks, you see evidence of agriculture, and you see also some skeletal remains which show a racial mixture of various types of human beings. So already at that time, people had developed different racial characteristics, and there had also been an intermixture between them. Probably the next phase, which we all are more familiar with, which is the Indus Valley civilization, which is famous. I think the most famous sites would be Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and on the Indian side, these are in Pakistan now, and on the Indian side, you have Dholavira and so on. A whole number of sites have been excavated. And it would seem that these sites and this civilization probably flourished from about 3,500 years ago till about, not 3,500 years ago, but 3,500 BC to about 1900 BC. It flourished, and most probably they borrowed a lot from the earlier civilization, which is the Mehergarh, which I talked about. As to who these people were, these were the people who were basically the descendants of those who had come earlier. As I said, around 65,000, 70,000 years ago, there was the out of Africa migration and people reached India. So they probably were those people with a mixture of subsequent migrations, again from the West and maybe from other parts of nearby regions like Iran, like Afghanistan, so on and so forth. What is now these areas, Afghanistan and Iran. So there was, again, if you see the skeleton remains which have been dug up from these areas, there is some racial mixture, but there is a distinct preponderance of Indian characteristics which derive from the earlier immigration into India, which was about 65,000 or maybe 50,000 years ago. I must add here that all this is based on archaeology, and archaeology is one of the most open-ended sciences or disciplines as of now, because as new discoveries come, you get new facts, and sometimes they change the way that you look at that period of our history. Now, what is the connection between them and what you call the Aryan civilization? This is, as you said, a very debated subject. And I think we must start by mentioning a few characteristics which are dissimilar, because there is no clear connect between the Indus Valley civilization and the subsequent Aryan civilization, so-called Aryan civilization that we are talking of. Firstly, the racial mix changed perhaps later, and I will come to that in a while. The Indus Valley civilization was based on urban conglomerates. There were very much developed citadels and urban settlements, and they relied mainly on agriculture and trade. And trade, even with far-off places, there is evidence of trade with West Asian regions in plenty, which has been discovered there. Then there is a there was a language, and we don't know what the language was. There are some inscriptions, short inscriptions, which have been found on seals and on the gateways, but they have not been deciphered as of now. Many people have worked on it, but they have not been deciphered. So we don't really know what the language was and what the script was, right? So then, if you look there at the icons which have been discovered from that Indus Valley civilization period, what is, the things that they show are, the icons that they show are not necessarily the same as the imaginations that later came with the Aryan civilization. So what I'm trying to say is that there was the Indus Valley civilization, but we have not really been able to see what the connects are. Then we come to what the Aryan civilization, how to place that in this historical continuum. The first thing is that in the ancient time, which we would call the Vedic times, there is very little archaeological evidence which has been left behind. Most of the evidence that is there is evidence from the literary or linguistic sources, and one of the main sources from which we derive history of that time is really the Vedas, because the Vedas mention they reflect a certain type of life, which was that of people who were basically hunters, and they reared cattle, and agriculture, in contrast to the Indus Valley civilization, did not play much of a part initially in their way of life. Their gods were different. Their way of devotion or prayer was different, because the Vedas tell you that they were basically they believed in sacrifices, in altars where the fire was lit, and then the sacrifices were made, and then they prayed to various gods, who were, if they were pleased, would give them various earthly benefits. Now, the other thing that we have to look at is the language that the Vedas used and subsequent works. We don't know, as I said, what the Indus Valley civilization, what language it used. But it is quite evident that the Vedic civilization used a language which could not have predated the Indus Valley civilization, because while it borrowed words and sounds from the local languages and dialects, and this is a matter which has been brought out by linguists, that in the west to east movement of populations, if there had been an ancient Indian language which was indigenous to India and it had moved out from here, then those sounds which are there in Vedic Sanskrit and subsequent Sanskrit, and those words would have traveled from India outwards towards the west and towards the north. Now, this is not the case, because you have what is called the retroflex sounds in our Indian languages, things like r and which are not present in most of the languages, the what you call the Indo-Aryan languages outside the subcontinent. Similarly, there are many loan words which are there in Vedic and subsequent Sanskrit, which are not there in the other in Indo-European languages. So that to me signifies that there may have been some continuity, but there was also a great dissimilarity between what the Aryan civilization was and what its predecessors were. And that is where things stood in terms of our ancient history until more recently, very recently, we have had proof of this, what I have been saying, that there was perhaps most probably there was a west to east movement. And this new development which I'm talking of is the science of DNA. Now, I'm sure we all know that there is a DNA composition in most of our cells, and in that there are two parts which are inherited by all human beings. One is what is called the mitochondrial DNA, which is you inherit from your mother, and that is inherited by both male and female offsprings from the mother. And then there is the patrilineal DNA, which is in the Y chromosome, which is inherited from the father, right? So if you study if you work yourself backwards from the present DNA analysis, then and you have now also DNA from the old sites of the skeletons and so on. So if you can see the continuity from them, then you can identify who were our forefathers. For thousands of years, you can trace the line backwards, right?
Sure.
And also, you can calculate the amount of time, because over a large period of time, an average number of mutations take place. So therefore, if you know the number of mutations that have taken place between, say, your DNA, and the DNA of a skeleton which is discovered in, let's say, Dholavira, then if you know the number of mutations that have taken place, you can calculate backwards how old that skeleton is. So this is basically what the science of DNA has given us. And through this scientific analysis, it has been proved that, number one, all Indians, you said from Kanyakumari to Kerala, and from Baluchistan to Bengal, all Indians, they have a very large proportion of common DNA, which can be traced back to the Homo sapiens who migrated to India, as I said, around 60 to 50,000 years ago. Then you have also, through this DNA analysis, people have discovered that there is the overlay, apart from this 50 to 60% or more of underlay of the old, what would we call the original Indians, let's call them original Indians. Their DNA is what we have, all of us. But in the northern part of the subcontinent, there is a larger overlay of DNA from Central Asia. And that is possibly where we equate that Central Asian DNA with what we call Aryan, the Aryan group or race or whatever you call it. So from this and from the dating, it has been more or less accepted that of the people who migrated around 50 to 60,000 years ago and moved west to east, maybe about 20, 30,000 years ago, some of the groups moved north from that same migration out of Africa, and they went to Central Asia. And because of climatic and food habit differences and so on, they developed different mutations and some characteristics which were different. And while a branch of them later went towards Europe, another branch looped back towards India, towards the subcontinent. And they then formed, they then settled down. They interacted with the civilization of the Indus Valley and mixed with them, mixed with the population, local population, and that as a result of that, you have the Indians of today.
Sir, let me stop you there because this has been very fascinating to learn about. First of all, that there is a commonality all over the Indian subcontinent. Of course, mixed successively with processions of settlers who came to India. So I would like to at this point ask you, so what do you think is the relevance today of these studies to know our origin? So in a manner which is, as you said, now in line with historical and, as you said, now scientific evidence.
I would mention 3 or 4 points which are relevant to today, to our identity today. The first one is that we don't know exactly the process through which this intermixture took place. There are theories that, there were invasions, Aryan invasions, and that they displaced the people of the Indus Valley civilization. But when you study the DNA, what comes out, what emerges is that it was a much more complex process. Of course, if you look at the Vedas, and many people quote the fact that Indra is mentioned as Purandar. Purandar means the destroyer of citizens. So they imagine that, the Aryans who came, invaded, and they destroyed the citadels of the Indus Valley people. But you don't find evidence of that massive invasion or massive skeletons who have been killed in war in any of the Indus Valley sites that have been discovered. So the first thing is that, there may have been conflict, but by and large, the process was also a result of a lot of peaceful intermixture and adaptation and co-option of various groups, co-option of their religions, their words from their languages, and so on. So that is the first thing of which I feel is relevant to our society today. The second one, as I said, is that we are all, the underlay, the large underlay of all our DNA is the same. And it dates back to 50 to 60,000 years ago. So no one can claim that he is a pure Indian. We are all mixtures. And no one can claim superiority or inferiority. Whether you look at different caste groups, you look at tribals, you look at north, south, we are all mixtures. And so, therefore, our identity is not based on, should not be based on any notions of purity, of racial purity or anything like that, but we should really celebrate the mixture that has come. And I must say in that mixture makes us the inheritors of very great civilizations, starting from the Indus Valley civilization, which, if you must remember, in its heyday, it covered over 1 million square kilometers. That is about a third of what India is today. Imagine about 5,000 years ago, a civilization which covered 1 million square kilometers and flourished there. And they had no means of which we have modern transport and communication. Yet it survived as a civilization for what 2,500 years. So and then of course you come to the Vedic period, which produced also its own achievements, great thinking in terms of metaphysics, great literature, and so on. So we are inheritors to all of this. And you cannot really say that we should confine ourselves to one or the other, right?
So, on that note, so it's very comforting to know that nearly all Indians have, as you say, largely common ancestry, if we can put it like this, with a lot of mixture, of course. So that's, as I said, comforting in today's environment. So I'll ask you one very last, very simple question in the end, and if you can answer it very briefly, sir. So, what would be your idea of a new India? There is a segment talking of an aspirational new India, and there is also others harping on how the idea of India is being defaced. So, what would be your idea of a new India, sir?
Um, if you look at what I have said about our history, and you can also bring it down through the centuries to the present, you can see that process of accommodation and intermixing has continued. There have, of course, been phases where it was arrested. Like if you look at our social systems, the caste systems that were not prevalent, by the way, during the early periods of even Vedic civilization. And it is really the scholars think that the caste system really got rigidified around the 1st century, 2nd century AD, so as late as that. But if you come from there into modern times, you find that there is again, for various reasons, the old process of mixture and adaptation has again resumed. And this is partly a result of the religious reforms, or reformists, shall we say, who talked against the caste system, who said that everyone is a child of God. For example, Mahatma Gandhi said that. Before that, there was various other people, movements, Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, and so on. And that continues till today, this intermixture. And that is again reinforced by other forces, which have a broad sweep. I mean, I will come to some of the exceptions a little bit later. I mean, these are the forces of industrialization and trade. Because of industrialization and urbanization, there's been a huge migration of people. There have been always been migrations in India from one part to the other, as you said, in the old times. Gradually, people spread from the northwest of India into the eastern part of the Indo-Gangetic plain and into the southern part of India. Uh, and this has been this was, but, and then again, if you look at some of the Middle Ages, apart from people who sort of did military conquests and therefore they moved, there was also a great deal of movement of people for negative economic reasons, like droughts. There were droughts and there were huge movements of people. But when you come to modern times, trade, because of trade, people have moved back and forth. Huge amount of people have moved back and forth in professions. You have the Moplas in Kerala, who are a mixture of Arabs and the local people of Kerala. You have the Kaists, who are professional scribes or bureaucrats, and they are also a racial mixture. And you have today where, because of industry, whole thousands and thousands of workers move from one part of the country to the other. So now India is a melting pot. People are getting more in common with each other, more characteristics, more social characteristics. Food habits are breaking down. There is, of course, certain social things like marriages where it has not really made that much of impact. Then there is, of course, the fact that because of we have democracy, one of the collaterals of democracy is a great thing, but one of the collateral effects has been that in the political process, parties tend to stress differences rather than commonalities. So, but I believe myself that the broad forces of social reform, urbanization, industrialization, and in fact, the scientific temper, all these will carry us forward towards a greater accommodation, a greater intermixture, and a greater idea of the identity, our identity as Indians. I think I would conclude that by saying that it's probably, we have still many identities. There are racial identities, there are regional identities, language identities, caste identities. But I think we have to look at it like concentric circles, which are breaking down, some of them, but they are concentric circles. And the outer circle is your idea of India. All of us now feel that we are Indian. We have our other identities as well, but there's the contradictions between these identities will, in the long run, dissolve more and more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. There's a lot to take away from your wealth of knowledge on the subject. I'm sure our viewers definitely are taking away a lot today. So we'll definitely love to have you again in this series very soon. And viewers, I hope you liked the program today. We'll be meeting again next Thursday in Straight Drive. Till then, namaskar.
Namaskar.